What, so you're going to fast for the rest of my illness? Eat in secret? Don't be daft. I'm fine about this, honestly. Okay, if you would have asked me a year ago if I could have dealt with this news, I probably would have said no. But a lot's changed since then. Losing my swallow isn't the worst thing in the world. Missing Summer's Last Supper, on the other hand.
Please stop calling it that.
The talk of the street.
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 Hello and welcome to episode 299 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that is half expecting our recording tonight to turn into a terrifying armed robbery. Please don't hit me in the face anything but the face. I'm Gavin.
You know, I could have done that. You didn't have to go to AI.
I've lost my voice a little bit.
Well, yes, but I haven't. However, my pants are falling down.
Just like London Bridge.
Yes. And I may be going into diabetic shock.
So I've kind of got COVID again.
No, you don't.
I don't, but...
You tested
and honestly,
negative.
it didn't feel like I had COVID until you said, "Are you sure you don't have COVID?" And I was like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, I've got COVID again." But then I took the test and it was negative. But I think COVID's changed since those tests came out. It wouldn't surprise me if I did have it.
No, because those are new.
Are they?
Yeah. And also, apparently, the FDA has changed the rules as far as expiration dates are concerned for COVID tests.
Oh, well, that's useful.
Because they're trying to get rid of all of their COVID tests.
Oh, okay. Because capitalism.
Right,
Okay.
yes. You could have flu or RSV or that other thing that's going around. What's that other thing?
I felt, until you mentioned COVID, I felt like I just had a heavy cold.
I've never... the only times I've seen you as sick as you were this week was when you had COVID. Because you were really... You were like every day that I came home, you were asleep in the afternoon. And that doesn't happen very often.
I didn't hate it.
No.
A little snooze in the afternoon is
It's
actually kind of lovely.
It's the real afternoon delight.
Pew! Yeah. I think there's kind of three, maybe four levels. There's sniffles that people say is the cold. There's the cold that people say is the flu. There's the flu that people say is COVID. And then there's COVID. So I typically get the sniffles and say I've got a cold. But I think I had a proper cold this week.
Yeah.
Because it's taken me about a week to feel better.
Yeah.
And my throat, you may have picked up on this, still a little scratchy.
Yeah. It is better, though, gentle listeners. He did sound worse. If you don't believe me, check out the List of Lists podcast from this week.
Yeah, that was before I discovered the Irish AI. Irish. Didn't have Scottish, unfortunately. I discovered a new toy.
Yeah.
I've been
yeah,
putting
you
it to
have.
good use on Twitter this week, or particularly today. Well, I think so anyway.
One of the last vestiges of Twitter is the talk of the street. One of the last good vestiges of Twitter.
Do you know, I've worked hard on that Twitter account.
You have.
And it's the only reason why I haven't left Twitter. Is because of the hours that I've put into it. But anyway, how have you been?
All right. I had my first experience
I'm poised.
going to a house to work on an auction.
Auction talk!
Yeah, Wednesday. So these people, these very nice people, they are lovely people. They have like an amazing collection of African art and Asian art and Native American art and a whole bunch of like metaphysical books and alternate religion books. And possibly cult books. But they also have this big, massive tool collection. So while all the cool stuff came to the auction house, the tools, we had to go to them. And it was like 30 degrees
It was chilly.
Fahrenheit on Wednesday. And there were snow flurries. And I was outside all day taking pictures of tools and tool-related things.
In a bikini?
No.
No, okay.
Have you ever seen me in a bikini?
Every time I
In
close my
real
eyes, baby.
life. In real life. No, I was wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt and my Denver, Colorado hoodie and my navy baseball cap with my hoodie hood over it. And then my, old kind of junky Gap winter coat and gloves.
You know, that's still kind of sexy.
Oh, you're so cute.
I'm ill.
So yeah, I mean, we knocked it out in a day. We were kind of worried we would have to go back, but and my phone nearly died. It died as I got into the car to drive home is when it died. So it managed to get all the work done, which was great because mine was the only phone that had like a really strong connection and was able to, upload pictures fairly quickly. I was the only one with Verizon.
See, every time I want to switch to Mint Mobile, I think of things like this.
Yeah. But there was one point where, in the beginning, where we were walking around the different outbuildings that had the tools in it, because there was like 4 or 5 different places where we were going to have to take pictures of tools. And the first place the guy showed us was the bathroom in the side of the house. And I was like, oh, well, I drove the furthest because it was like 40 minutes away from here. And so I was like, all right, guys, I'm just going to jump in the bathroom. I'll be right back out. I jumped in the bathroom. I came out and I could not find them. They were gone and I didn't know which direction they had gone in. And I'm wandering around and I almost go in the neighbor's yard, but then the neighbor had like deer skulls hanging from a tree. And so I didn't want to go over there.
Understandable.
And then I'm walking around and I like trip over some gravestones. Because the gentleman whose house we're taking care of
Was Freddy Krueger.
he's a scrapper, and he built like a whole cabin out of like recycled materials, and his house is mostly made of recycled materials. So like there's a one of the stone places that do tombstones or gravestones. They will call him up when they have ones that they didn't get right the first time, and he will buy them for like half off.
Oh, bad grammar tombstones?
Yes, that
Wonderful.
sort of thing. Or they get the date wrong or something, that sort of thing. And then, like, I'm walking back down the driveway and I noticed that he has, like, one of those resuscitation heads under a table and, like, a decapitated, like, mannequin hand holding an 1970s can of Diet Pepsi. So it was a little spooky. To be
Genuinely
there
terrifying.
by myself. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to buy that resuscitation head
Oh, for fuck's sake.
and put it in our bedroom.
Very good.
Yes.
Shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that genuinely terrifying Corrie news.
Corrie has signed former Emmerdale producer Kate Brooks to take over show running duties from what's his name? Already forgotten him. Shrug emoji.
And you are pulling off a shrug emoji.
I am. And ladies, you're in luck. She's a lesbian.
See,
She's married, but she's a lesbian and a lady. Which I guess you kind of have to be a lady to be a lesbian. I am really, really excited for this change. I think having a woman at the helm will do the show good. And maybe we'll get some lesbians back. Who knows?
some non-exploding lesbians.
Right, yes.
Yeah, she's young as well.
And non-flattened lesbians.
Yeah. So she's young. She's
A lady.
a lady. She's gay.
Yes.
It feels like if we want a change to happen in Coronation Street, if it doesn't happen now, I'm not sure what parameters need to be in place for it to happen at some other point.
Right.
Now,
And
the
she's
only thing-
award-winning as well.
The only thing that is a little concerning, and it's maybe not fair to be concerned about this, but it's almost like Emmerdale is used as a kind of training ground for Corrie producers. You serve your time at Emmerdale, the Coronation Street gig is seen as a promotion.
Is it?
I think some people look at it that way, some people probably don't.
No.
So it's not somebody completely outside of, the ITV soap realm of influence.
Right.
This is somebody in the house who is just kind of shifting a little bit. However, I do think it is, on the surface, a positive change.
I do too.
I think it's been desperately needed.
Yes.
And it feels like I said, that if the changes that people are crying out for, there's too much emphasis on violence and guns and gangsters, there's too many characters, there's too many...
Explosions.
There's too many sensationalist storylines that are dragged from the headlines. If there's somebody who is going to be able to turn this back to what it was, and it never will go back to how exactly it was.
No.
But
And
this,
nor it should.
this feels kind of positive.
Yes. Yes, I'm very excited about it. Yes. Speaking of change.
And so she starts next month.
Yes.
So we won't really feel this until probably midsummer.
Yes. But people will start blaming her for things
Tomorrow.
right away.
Tomorrow, absolutely.
Speaking of change, Matilda Freeman, Summer's old head, has a new gig acting on the ITV show Passenger, which stars Wunmi Mosaku, formerly of Loki and Lovecraft Country, and personally my pick to take over Doctor Who before Ncuti Gatwa was chosen for it. And I love Ncuti. So that's pretty special to be acting with someone who has worked for Disney / the MCU and HBO / Warner Brothers. Pretty amazing. She's not the only Corrie alum to be in the show either. It also stars Debbie Rush and Jack James Ryan.
Our favourite Jack James Ryan.
Our favorite Jack James Ryan. So I guess this means that the young Mr. Hay is not coming back to visit his dad and uncle in prison anytime soon.
I think this is a limited series, Passengers.
Yeah, but still.
Oh, okay. He's not allowed back now?
No. Well, no, it's just, it feels like he's busy still.
Oh, I see.
He's too busy. He's too busy for Coronation Street, although...
He's had a couple of
it's
name
still
checks
ITV.
recently, which,
he has,
which would normally make you think...
which excites me quite a bit, yes. Yeah, so that's pretty amazing, and Wunmi coming back home to the UK and working with ITV after Disney and HBO. But apparently she just had her first child and everything, so I can kind of understand wanting to work closer to home and, and not for Hollywood. And finally, our deepest love and prayers and support for Helen Flanagan, who has opened up on Instagram about her diagnosis of psychosis. Apparently, she had a negative reaction to one of the drugs she takes for either ADHD or bipolar disorder, two other things that she has. And, mental illness is still something that a lot of people treat as the person's fault or something like really scary and terrifying and stuff. And so for an actor to be so frank and honest about this aspect of her life is really, really brave and impressive. And us Helens have to stick together.
Absolutely, yeah. Thoughts to Helen Flanagan.
Yes. And
I think it's just the word psychosis is just a really scary word, isn't it?
It is. It is. And it feels very blanket as well. Like it covers a lot of different things. Or people perceive it as covering a lot of different things. You know, and she just also went through a breakup recently, well, in 2022, which feels recent to me because time means nothing.
No, it doesn't.
Post-pandemic. So, yeah, she's had a rough couple of years. And, you know, more power to her. And that's Corrie News.
That's Corrie News. And that, as ever, leads us seamlessly into the section that I like to call Everyone's a Critic. Tons to get through again this week. Did that sound like I'm complaining?
Yes.
There's tons to get through this week. Is that better?
I think it's the word tons that's the problem.
Oodles to get through this week.
And get through.
Oodles to chat about this week.
Yes,
There
there
we
you go.
Let's start with Deck on YouTube, who comments, "This is the saddest shit I've ever seen. Soap fans are just 100% comedial."
I'm not quite sure I'm not sure what any of that means.
I think they mean comedic or comedians.
So
I don't think comedial's a word though.
So soap fans are comedians. But what is the most depressing shit that he's ever seen? The actual show?
I think our episode of the podcast.
So he didn't like our episode of the podcast.
That's what I'm gathering.
Okay, I guess.
I just need some clarity on comedial.
I feel like I need direction on all of it. I thought someone named Deck would be lovely.
Maybe they are.
Maybe they are.
Maybe they are.
Or maybe we should be speaking to his brother Porch.
Oof. You think the family's named after words for outside living?
Backsteps, his sister.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Oh, that's unfair. Then Red They on YouTube wrote to say, we never get comments on YouTube. But
And now all of a sudden we've got 2 comments on YouTube.
Saying, I think you mixed up Ava, Leanne's half-sister, with Rosie when you were talking about Aidan last week. Love you guys, by the way. Listen to you while I'm doing my chores over the weekend, and you always make me laugh. A far clearer note.
Yes. And
from Red They.
I believe he's right that I was mixing up Ava and Rosie. Yes?
Well, just to make sure, Gemma Winter Brown on Twitter wrote, I think Helen may have confused Rosie with Sophie in regards to involvement in the Aidan storyline, so now I'm none the wiser.
Well, it's definitely not Sophie because Sophie is a lesbian with a great jean jacket. So she would not be romantically involved with Aidan.
Okay. Then Canadian Helen wrote in, I loved this week's podcast. Corrie is finally getting enjoyable again. I just had to comment when Helen mentioned Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. I loved playing the game on my PC, although it was a pain loading all those floppy disks.
That's true.
Some games had over 8 disks to load.
Yeah.
This makes me think of The Secret of Monkey Island.
Okay. I've never played that.
You've never played The Secret of Monkey Island?
No, but you have never played the Oregon Trail or Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego.
I feel sadder for you.
I feel sadder for you.
I also loved the Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego game show on PBS.
Yes, that was great. It had a great theme song.
They had a wonderful a cappella group on the show. Speaking of, that would be a great idea for Gavin to do an a cappella intro for some segments of The Talk of the Street.
That would be, just not this week.
No. Thank you, Canadian Helen. Daisy writes, I love the blog. Just wanted to say I'm from Scotland too. The Scottish contingent is growing. My partner listens as well.
Aw.
Thank you, Daisy.
Yay, Scotland.
Wendy writes, just watched the theft episode. Sorry, Bethany is writing the right-wing article and had names from racist Kelly. She was warned that they were dangerous. That's why Bethany looks so guilty. She knows Lauren was giving up info that could get her killed. Well, that is maybe a theory that you are
Yeah.
more likely to subscribe to. I'm still not sure. I think Bethany might have something else to do with it. Thank you to Wendy, Daisy, to Canadian Helen, to Gemma Winter Brown, to Red They, and to Deck. Yes, and also to Deck. For
And
feedback.
his sister Porch. No, his sister Backsteps.
Feedback despite what Helen says, is always welcome. Send us your thoughts and I'll probably read them out. Get us at thetalkofthestreet@gmail.com or our DMs are open at Corrie Podcast. Please note that we reserve the right to edit feedback, but only in the interests of brevity.
No.
Now let's see if Helen was paying attention. This is episode number...
I don't know.
It's literally the first thing that the Irish guy said.
I don't understand Irish guys. I understand Scottish guys.
This is episode 299.
Okay, so next week is episode 300.
So next week is episode 300. Our episode 300 spectacular.
What did we do for 200?
Nothing.
I know for 100 we got drunk on champagne.
Yes, we got drunk.
And mimosas.
In the morning.
At 9 o'clock in the morning.
For 200 we did nothing.
Because we don't drink anymore.
For 300, what? And maybe should have thought about this before. Maybe should have planned ahead for this. But if you have anything that you want to say on the event of our 300th episode, please do so. And in fact, if you want to record us a voice note or a voice message or record any MP3, whatever, even if you're calling us shit, it would just make our day for the 300th episode. It would make it just that little bit more special.
Yes, that would be nice.
Now, if you don't, I'm going to feel like an asshole. But you know what? I feel like an asshole most days anyway.
Because you are.
So, yeah, it's episode 300 next week.
Woohoo!
Be a part of it. Be part of the Talk of the Street. It's your podcast. Technically, it's not, and legally, it's my podcast. But, you know, it's your podcast. Be a part of it. Join the Talk of the Street community.
Yes.
Send us a little note for our 300th episode.
And we'll pay you as much as we get, which is nothing.
But hey, if you set up a Ko-Fi.com, I'll probably buy you a coffee. And you know what I would? That's the sort of shit that I pull. So write in or send your clips to thetalkofthestreet@gmail.com. Now we'll podcast for coffee. Thanks to DT for our coffees this week.
Thank you, DT.
DT is another person who is a friend of the podcast who also buys us coffees.
That's amazing.
Again, don't need to do that.
But it's nice.
Thank you so much for doing so.
Yes.
Very much appreciated. The Talk of the Street is and will always be free on your podcast provider and on the YouTubes. But if you think a show is worth anything more than the time it takes to listen to it, and if you want to show your appreciation, you can buy us next week's coffee by going to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/The Talk of the Street. You can also sign up to be a friend of the podcast through the same link, where for as little as $2 a month, you can get a mention in the closing credits of each and every episode. But remember, you can always support the podcast for free. Get us in front of new listeners by liking, subscribing, rating and reviewing wherever you get your podcasts. And you have been doing that in your droves in 2024 so far.
Thank you.
Our numbers are about 25% higher than at this time last year.
That's amazing.
And for someone who's very numbers orientated, as we are, that means a lot. To me, anyway.
It does. You should have gotten the Irish guy to do that.
And maybe we'll get the Irish guy to do that in future.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's something that you say every week. Or maybe you should record...
single fucking week.
Or maybe you should record yourself saying that once and just add it on.
Do you know what I'd really
time.
like to do is extend the World Podcast for Coffee music while the Irish guy talks over it. I'll maybe do that. All right. Shall we dive in, my dear?
Yes, please.
We will start this week with Where on Earth is Racist Kelly?
Where in the world is Racist Kelly? That's the theme song from Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, as done by that wonderful a cappella group.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just some scenes on Monday, and not really an awful lot to do with the storyline.
No, it's more to do with Roy.
It is. Nina has woken up to the sound of smoke alarms thanks to the show, remembering that Roy sleepwalks when he's stressed, even before we get a chance to add that to Wendy's list.
Yes, well done, show. It remembers something else this week, too. I can't wait to talk about it.
Alia and Dee Dee drop in to see how Roy's doing. He's frantically cleaning his apartment, but says that he's fine. He's worried about how much he owes Dee Dee and Alia for their work, and Dee Dee tells him not to worry about it for now. However, Nina is concerned about this, and Dee Dee confirms that it's going to cost a pretty penny depending on how long it goes on for.
Right. Which is funny because I don't recall this conversation ever coming up with anyone else who's ever had legal trouble on the show.
They never worry about how they're going to pay for it,
No.
unless it's important that they worry about how they're going to pay for it. Like Amy had to worry about how much it was going to cost.
Oh, her parents, yeah. But you'd think Adam would have done it pro bono.
Roy says he doesn't really care how much this is going to cost. He just needs his name cleared. And then separately, and after about 9 months or so, Ed tells Dee Dee that he's off to see Aggie in that Birmingham. And so off he fucks to that.
And then Roy is accosted by a even stranger weird old man with scraggly hair who looks like an actual serial killer.
He looks like a guy whose name is Creepy Ralph.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. He does look like a guy named Creepy Ralph who comes up and starts demanding of Roy what he's done to that girl and like starts talking about him shoveling guano up on the hill with his shovel and to bury Lauren's body or something and all this other stuff. If you were innocent, you wouldn't have been shoveling bat guano and leaves. And leaves, like raking the leaves. Not that he leaves. Right. He doesn't leave until Dee Dee and Alia tell him to fuck off.
Yeah, Roy was just quite happily going to have this conversation
with this crazy
on
man
the pavement outside his cafe.
Yeah.
With Crazy Ralph.
Yeah. Creepy Ralph.
Creepy Crazy Ralph.
We're just doubling down here, aren't we?
It's like, I feel sorry for the extra that they had to drag in for this because, you know, he's fitting a pattern, isn't he?
Right.
Scraggly hair, a kind of weathered appearance. He's maybe missing some teeth and stuff.
To make demands of Roy, who he's never met before.
Yeah, and to act really unhinged.
Yeah.
Wasn't he wearing like an anorak? It kind of.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
And a hoodie.
Do you know what? He looked like the sort of guy that in other circumstances would be Roy's best friend.
It's true. It's true.
Under normal
reflection,
circumstances.
This would be a guy who would help him to shovel bat guano.
Yep.
In other circumstances. But it's weird because we've gone from like the guys who look like they definitely have a podcast about true crime, you know, sitting in the caf and taking notes and eavesdropping, to like the toughs who were at the thing.
The street toughs.
Yeah, the street toughs who were yelling at Roy for being at the memorial.
Creepy cropper.
Yeah. And the toughs who roughed him up by breaking china.
The racist toughs.
Yes, the racist toughs. And now we have sad, scraggly old man. Who is definitely not...
Creepy Ralph.
He was definitely not doing a podcast. Who's definitely not on the internet. He's definitely not on the socials. This is not a man who's fluent in social media. So I don't know where he's seen these pictures.
The extra fit the bill perfectly.
Right. I hope he got a big check.
And you know, he had lines to say and he delivered them.
Yeah.
You can't say that he didn't.
He was believable.
You can't say he didn't deliver those lines. He absolutely did.
He really did.
And he did a good enough job.
Yeah, he was fine.
Doing it. But it is a case of, who does this? And you know, people do this. And I think you've highlighted some of the issues that you've got these certain groups. And if social media is responsible for something bad in this world, hard though it may be to believe, is given the members of these groups like-minded people to latch onto.
I'm just surprised they haven't done like a Moms for Liberty coming up to him and, you know, won't anyone think of the children?
Yeah.
And, you know, while we're at it, let's censor and ban Dr. Seuss books or something.
Not only, but also fans.
Yes.
But that's as far as we get with the Racist Kelly storyline. And I was really disappointed about the lack of this storyline that we got this week, because it has been, as I wrote in the blog last week, the thing that is keeping us really interested in the show over the last few weeks has been that the whodunit nature of this has been really intriguing, and it's kind of just manifested out of nothing, and it's kind of caught me by surprise. And it's caught me by surprise as how invested I am in it. And they don't really talk about it much this week, and instead they talk about some different things that I'm very much less interested in.
Right.
And I think when we're talking about the new producer and we're talking about the future of the show, it's the balance of these things that needs to be struck in a manner that is trying less to be EastEnders.
Right.
The characters that we watch Coronation Street for are different from the characters that are in EastEnders. And there's a reason why these shows exist separately. Yeah. Because they appeal to different people, a different audience. Well. And they can exist, and you can enjoy both.
Right. And
but maybe some people don't enjoy one and watch the other one because of that. And that's kind of how I feel about Coronation Street.
But it kind of feels like all network television is kind of like that these days, isn't it? Where it's all kind of basically the same show, and nobody watches any of them because they're busy on Netflix or Disney Plus and stuff. At trivia last night, one of the few trivia questions we didn't get right, and that nobody got right and nobody answered, was a question about the first season of Chicago Hope. Or not Chicago Hope, Chicago Fire. See, this is the problem. That this... One of the networks, I believe it's CBS, has like 6 shows set in Chicago that kind of blend together. And nobody watches these shows. Nobody cares.
Right.
It is an interesting quandary.
All right, let's move on then to our next storyline, which is Grand Theft Stupid. Oh, I swear to God, this was bad enough, but then other things happened.
And then it got worse.
So, on Monday, it's Harry's 8th birthday.
And he still talks like he's 3.
Harry is 8 now.
How is he 8?
8 years old.
How?
And Damon is distant, thinking about meeting the bar owner this afternoon and missing Harry's birthday. Sarah tells him not to stress about it. He's doing this for them, she reminds him. Sarah heads off to Nina's Rolls and bumps into Adam, who wants to drop off Harry's present later, and Sarah allows it, but she's still trying to keep her distance from him a bit.
And his arm is still in a sling.
Which I'm glad about. I'm glad they haven't made his broken arm resolve itself in an episode.
Yeah. We're reminded that he's not Wolverine. Damon is Wolverine.
Inside Nina's Rolls, she sees Ed, who hasn't a fucking clue what she's talking about when she brings up the meeting with the bar owner. Ed sees Damon in the community garden later, worried that his work is shoddy and that's why he's been kept in the dark about these meetings. A passing Sarah is explaining how VR works to Gail on the phone when she sees them chat and becomes suspicious and then hears Damon deny everything. Sarah walks over and demands the truth.
You can't handle the truth, shouts Damon.
So back home, Damon admits that he's meeting about Harvey's robbery job from months ago. He points out that he's doing this to stop Sarah getting run down in the street in future. And he says that the driver of the security van is in on it, so the job is going to be super simple. Sarah doesn't think it's going to be as easy as that, and there's always going to be another job. Damon ignores this and says that the job is next week. Sarah just wants this done and over. Fine, says Damon, and then he announces that, oh, by the way, I need to go and pick up some pizzas for Harry's party, and rushes off, and Sarah doesn't think anything of it. Wait a second.
She's too busy thinking about Harry's party. And explaining VR to Gail.
Evidently. That was funny. It's like a computer that you wear on your face, Gail, and you're in the computer. No, I haven't been drinking.
No. Although it kind of sounds like you have.
I really wanted to see Gail in that VR headset.
Yeah, that would have been... I mean, David is delightful, but Gail would have been great.
David didn't do anything that I didn't expect, though.
Yeah.
Gail
would have been all over the place.
Wouldn't have to say a word.
No.
And we're talking moment of the week territory. Just that expression with that VR headset on. Oh, it'd have been a thing of beauty. So, Damon meets up with the other goons at the precinct and they speed off to intercept a security van just like Grand Theft Stupid. So in broad daylight, and armed with sledgehammers, they attack the van and knock the driver out. One of the goons wants to kill the guard so that they can up their take-home cuts from this.
Yeah.
So Damon intervenes and they squabble with their sledgehammers for a bit before going their separate ways as sirens wail in the distance.
Right. They almost kill Damon, though, because the one guy says to the other guy, all right, kill him instead. And the guy's like, I'm not going to kill him. He's Harvey's brother.
So Damon and that guy end up they start struggling, and Damon hits him in the stomach with his sledgehammer, and the guy goes, all right, fine.
Whatever. I'm running away now.
This is just the stupidest fight.
It's so dumb.
They've brought sledgehammers to a gun party. They want to kill the guard, but they've only got sledgehammers. Do you know how difficult it is to kill somebody with a sledgehammer?
Not very.
It's very difficult because you need to smash their head in. You need to, obliterate their head.
Well, from the top, it would be easy. And the guy's sitting down.
It's messy.
Well, it is messy. I'll give you that. Doing anything with a sledgehammer is messy. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's weird that it kind of feels like they've heard our and other people's criticism about how many guns show up in the show. So they're like, all right, well, let's figure out something else. I know. Let's give them sledgehammers.
The weapon of choice is not my main complaint here.
I know.
Next week it's chisels. Next week it's saws. Next week it's paper cuts.
Drills.
Sledgehammers was a bad move.
Yes, just ask Peter Gabriel.
Meanwhile, Sarah's frantically texting Damon telling him to get his fucking arse home, and David is stomping about like an asshole with a VR headset on. I think he's imagining himself to be in some kind of...
It's a farm.
Oh, it's a farm.
Yeah, because he's talking about chickens and pigs. That sounds like the most boring VR experience ever.
Do you know, all VR experiences are pretty dull.
Unless they're like alien pigs. Are they pigs on Mars? Then I'm in.
Damon finally gets home with 6 pizzas. That's Damon's 6 pizzas.
Frozen pizzas. Pizzas that still need to be cooked.
Yep, they haven't been cooked, and he rushes off to get changed.
Is there not a Pizza Hut in all of England to get cooked pizzas?
Privately, he tells Sarah that he did the job after all, saying that he was lying that it wasn't next week. Surprise, surprise.
Durr.
He promises that it's over now. So are we, says Sarah. Damon explains that he's done now and he'd do it again to keep Sarah and the kids safe. And stupid Sarah falls for it, agrees to put it behind them. But as they're heading out for a walk towards the bistro, they're pulled over when the armed cops show up and lift Damon. Harry nearly getting himself shot in the process.
I know, that was kind of terrifying to me.
Just a little bit.
I was terrified for poor wee Harry, who is apparently 8 years old now.
8 years old now. 8 Earth years.
Is that 8 in dog years?
That make him 1 1/7? Yes. This is the sort of thing that I'm not interested in. This robbery thing.
Yeah.
That we've been kind of threatening us with for months now.
Which
really,
is so dumb.
Since the start of the year. And it was as stupid as it sounded.
Yeah.
And maybe a little more so, because you've got them arguing about it.
Right. Yeah.
You've got them suddenly deciding to kill people.
Right.
Which, even though they're going to get a bigger cut. This is, the honour amongst thieves thing.
Right,
This
yeah.
is typically what they're talking about, is that the guy that was a driver, we will learn, has put himself into the security firm and has
Right.
been working there for months.
Right.
To get the intel.
Right. And to gain the trust.
Right. To basically plan the job.
Right. Yeah. A guy who, has no record as of yet.
And the criminal underworld is going to, I guess, know about this and Harvey's gang just decides to bump him off.
Right, yeah.
That's not really how these things work, I don't think.
It's not how they should work. It's not how it worked in the old days of La Casa Nostra. But these days, with the drugs and the prostitution.
And the numbers game, and the racketeering.
Right, yeah. Honor amongst thieves is dead.
Yeah.
It's not like the old days. And it gets worse.
If you want to get me disinvested in a storyline, this is exactly what you want to do. Have a robbery in broad daylight when the weapon of choice is sledgehammers.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. On Wednesday, everyone's got over the fact that Harry's somehow 8 years old now.
And was nearly shot by the police last night.
Sarah's at number 8 while the cops search the Rosebank flat. David always had suspicions about Damon. And Sarah's like, well, you liked him. The cops haven't left the place in a tidy condition as Adam comes over to pretend to be concerned, and it's not long before they're arguing. Sarah accusing him of engaging Harvey. Adam accusing her of bringing an armed robber into the home. He just wants her to be safe. He doesn't care if it's with him or not.
Right, yeah. Well, then
But she keeps on saying.
Maybe, Adam, then you shouldn't have been conspiring with Harvey, who's already murdered someone on the street.
Yep.
And you almost got him out so he can murder more people.
He just wants her to be safe. She just wants him to fuck off. Adam goes home and has a word with Dee Dee about going to represent Damon. Meanwhile, Todd has caught wind of the excitement from David, and despite not working at the factory, he wanders into the factory to speak with Sarah. She is in no mood for his gay antics.
She is a bitch to him.
Tells him to fuck off too. He says he still cares for her and leaves, which is nice because in classic Corrie, they've just split up and she's just lost the baby because he's just come out. So
that's how that works, folks. Gayness causes miscarriage.
So Dee Dee does Adam a solid and gives Damon his choices. Either plead not guilty and throw Harvey under the bus, or plead guilty and get a third off his sentence. Damon may be short, but he's not a short grass, and he plumps for option 2. Kirk is the next man to try and calm Sarah, but no dice there either. Bethany tells Sarah that Damon has pled guilty. Sarah pretends that she's consumed with the work that Carla can't be arsed doing, although she's intrigued that Dee Dee is representing him. Meanwhile, in his jail cell, Damon is paid a visit from Harvey, who has bribed a guard. So the two of them get reacquainted with a tickling competition that results in both of them covered in jam and exhausted.
Yes. Not even remotely convincing jam either. Like it's...
An apricot jam or a marmalade.
It's like orange. Their blood is orange.
Meanwhile, Dee Dee catches up with Sarah and explains that it was Adam's idea for her to represent Damon, but it was Damon's idea to plead guilty, and he did it to protect her. And this, inexplicably, seems to melt Sarah's heart, especially when Dee Dee explains about Damon refusing to kill the driver.
Right.
Later, Harvey and Damon's injuries have already begun to heal, and Harvey makes it clear
And they've wiped the jam off their faces.
that the two of them still aren't square, but the idea of getting the old team back together behind bars appeals. Damon doesn't really have anything better to do other than masturbate over a very old photo of Sarah, so sure, why not? But then sends her a message that he wants a visit.
Yes.
On Friday, because she's a muppet, Sarah goes to see Damon, who still has yesterday's jam on his face. Sarah knows of the sacrifices that he's made for her and Harry, and has been thinking of their situation, and she promises to wait until he gets out, which might be 10 to 15 years, who knows. Damon, though, has different ideas and breaks up with her. Nice one, Sarah.
Woohoo!
So she heads to the bistro to get blitzed with Bethany on the Vino Collapso. Sarah realises how stupid she's been and how happy she was with Adam now she thinks about it. She wishes she could wake up and it all be a dream. You and me both. Next day, Sarah goes to see Adam and asks if they can put the brakes on selling the flat for a couple of months until everything settles. He's happy to do so, but when he asks if she wants a coffee, she makes her excuses and leaves, and she goes home to have the usual conversation with Harry, that the man that she let into their lives with ambitions to be his forever daddy will never be back. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Poor Harry, he can't get a dad to stick.
Nope.
One dies, one divorces, and one goes to prison.
Gary could have been his forever daddy as well.
Yeah. And Gary's a good dad to some of his kids.
To one and a half of them. Best to the one that isn't his at all.
Right. Yeah. Because above his kids, he loves his wife.
This storyline kind of made me angry.
Why?
Well, for all the reasons that I've said about just generally gangster stories, just not... They're done too often to be effective. But also, Sarah's stupidity is frankly breathtaking in this. Does it maybe make sense? Does it maybe make sense that she's a woman of a certain age who is desperate to have that forever daddy for Harry? That becomes kind of the priority, that she's willing to overlook this litany of things that work against the man in her life.
Either that or Damon is really, really good in the sack, which is what I think is what's going on here. Because if all she was worried is like the daddy issues and being a woman of a certain age, she'd get back together with Adam.
Yeah, when I say a woman of a certain age, she's just turned 40.
Right.
And she's by no means over the hill.
No.
But maybe her mind is starting to think in those sort of terms, that by age 40, maybe she should be getting settled down by now. Maybe life should be easier than it has been by now.
Yes. As another character says in another storyline, she's been on the street for all of her life. She's kind of running out of options as far as the dating pool on the street is concerned.
Back with Adam, do you think? There's regret there. There's definite regret there.
There's definite regret there.
When she was talking to Bethany about it.
But I don't think you just give Adam a pass for the whole almost getting Harvey out of jail thing. Especially now, as we see Harvey's really kind of mucked everybody's lives up. The fight was stupid. How stupid was that fight in prison? Like the guard just opening the door and welcoming Harvey in and then shutting the door.
And then leaving them for the rest of the day.
Pretty much.
It was dark.
And then they just kind of wrestle a little bit and punch one another in the face. And then Damon punches Harvey in the nuts, which was hilarious. Because Harvey's like, I can't believe you did that. It's like, well, that's what's at eye level.
Right. Because Damon's short.
Yeah. And then, hence all the Wolverine jokes. But then, like, they're fine with one another by the end.
Well, they're not. Because Harry's like, this isn't making us square. It really is, though.
Right. Well, he's like, but he's also like, oh, we're going to get the band back together sort of thing. Where, like, they fight for X amount of time, and then Harvey sits down to, rest his balls.
They need rested.
And then they're just, like, chatting.
Yeah, they fight for 30 seconds and then chat for 7 hours.
Right. And it's the same guard, too. It's like, shouldn't he have gone home by now?
Doesn't he have anything else to do?
Aren't there other prisoners to guard? Yeah, the whole thing, especially since Damon was supposed to be the badass of this family.
I was trying to find definitive proof of that because I have this memory of a character, I think Ryan, telling Nick that Damon, out of the two of them, was the worst one. Mm-hmm. And that he ran all the clubs in Ibiza.
Right.
And either the drugs were going through him.
Right.
Or something like that.
And also, let's not forget, Sharon, their aunt, is supposed to be
the head of the whole
head
thing.
of this whole operation.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
Nobody mentions her. This is something the show has forgotten.
I think that's already on Wendy's list.
Yes, I hope so.
Oh, do you know it's not on Wendy's list? It's
Really?
It's going on right now.
And Damon threatened to kill his own son, and now he's a little teddy bear. What's up with that?
And that got another mention or two
Right.
this week, as we said.
Yeah, so I guess Sarah is really good in the sack as well, that she can change a gangster into a loving father of a kid who's not his.
Well, that's what the leather trousers are for, isn't it?
I guess so. I'm not buying it.
What's the future for Damon, though? Because armed robbery isn't community service.
No.
and maybe a suspended jail term. This is like years in jail.
Did the other guys get caught too? The ones who...
Presumably, the driver squealed.
Right.
Quite rightly.
Yes. Good for him. Good for him.
So Harvey's not getting out of jail.
No.
And Damon's not getting out of jail.
No.
It feels like there is no other way around the fact that that's them out of the show now. You can't have Damon in jail for years on end.
Well, they've had Harvey in jail for over a year.
But he just comes and goes. He's in it for like 2 months and then you don't see him for a year.
Yeah. I don't know. Is ITV Corrie still in prison?
Well, it was murder, so yes.
Okay. I don't know how these things work.
How murder works?
Well, I know how murder works, but, sometimes murderers get out. But it's typically when they're like in their 80s and they have cancer and they're dying in a few weeks anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
It feels like this is it. And if this is it, what a stupid way to take this story. Damon, we were kind of warming to, right? He went away. When he went away and then he came back a different character. He had a reverse Bernie.
Yeah, we were
pattern.
confused. We've been confused by him.
Because he was a namby-pamby when he came back.
The relationship with Sarah has been fun because they have really good chemistry.
Yep.
But overall,
Yeah, if it
do
was,
we need
if it was-
another gangster on the street?
No, we don't. But if it was a reformed gangster and somebody who was noising up Nick and Leanne, I was kind of for that last year. I miss Damon from last year. I'm not going to miss Damon from this year because he just became another gangster.
Right.
I will miss his relationship with Ed. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah,
But
that
where's-
was nice.
So where's that going to go now?
Right. Yeah. What's happening with this bar thing? Is that ever going to happen? Probably not, I guess.
Not with Damon's backing because Damon's the money behind it, I think.
Right. But he
not
was
enough money
supposedly
to get a house.
Right.
Which is weird. But
That's what I was about to say. He was backing this bar, but he doesn't have enough money to buy a house for Sarah, who he supposedly will do anything for.
yeah, one wonders where he got the money and how liquidated that money really is. But I don't know. Just enough with the robberies, please. But hey, let's see where we go for the rest of the week.
Yeah, I was about ready to say.
Our next storyline tonight is Summer Exchange. On Monday, Summer has just bought a student's fare from Weatherfield to Boston.
Well,
just-
Todd has bought Summer a student's fare from Weatherfield to
as he
Boston.
puts his old credit card back in his inside pocket.
Right, yeah.
I think you're probably looking at a couple of grand for that.
Probably.
Manchester to Boston. Now, he left, 2 days? He bought a ticket on Monday, she flew out on the Wednesday. I think that's tomorrow in storyline terms. Let's see how much that one-way ticket costs. Leaving.
Would it be one way, or would it be... Would he have gotten her a return ticket as well?
Let's say that she's coming back at the end of June, shall we? Manchester to Boston. Actually, if you don't mind a little stopover at Copenhagen, $755, which
Oh, that's
isn't
not bad.
at all.
That's not bad at all. And
Otherwise,
Copenhagen's lovely this time of year.
1,400 flying via Amsterdam, 1,400 flying via Dublin. So, if you're lucky, you can get a flight for about $800. If not, about 1,400. All for this on a whim.
Essentially, yes.
Going to this university that she's already fucked around twice.
Right, yeah. And apparently they still want her.
Did
And
this-
it's this very prestigious program that not very many people get into.
Sure. They decide to celebrate by cooking a lovely roast dinner. Paul goes off for his speech and swallowing assessment, and he's beginning to struggle with both. A very matter-of-fact nurse tells him that it's pureed food from now on for him, Well, until they give him the feeding tube, that is. And I was like, oh my God, this is so bleak. And she was so matter-of-fact talking about it. And Paul's trying his best because he's there with Bernie to be as upbeat about it as possible.
Right.
But it's like, oh my God, this is just
Terrible.
just gets worse and worse, and it's never getting better. Paul isn't surprised by this, but it still hits him pretty hard, and now he's worried that Summer won't leave now, aren't we all? Meanwhile, at home, Summer and Billy are making their lovely roast dinner. Paul gets home and explains the lay of the land, which shuts the two of them up. They box up the food for Billy to take to a homeless shelter, while Summer threatens to cancel the University of America for maybe the 4th time. What the fuck's going on here, says Paul, wondering if everyone's going to eat in secret until he dies. Get that food on the table and blend me some chicken dinner.
Winner, winner.
But it turns out that blended chicken dinner tastes like ass, so Bernie improves it by adding some apple pie, and that seems to do the trick. Everyone checks that Summer's still fucking off to Boston, and she is.
Yay!
So Wednesday, Summer is packing for her 3-month trip to the University of America. She doesn't want a fuss of having to get permits to film at Manchester Airport, and she'd rather just go to the airport on her own. So we're given the bizarrely cold sight of Billy, Paul and Todd bundling Summer into a taxi with no sign of Amy, no sign of Nina or Asha or Addie.
No, none of her friends.
Paul keeps the mood light by promising not to die without her. Later, Billy and Paul have the flat to themselves and they're about to wank each other off or whatever when Todd arrives with a takeaway and plunks himself down between the two of them.
Right,
That's
yeah.
kind of funny.
Yeah.
On Friday, Paul is using his voice box machine to boss Billy around and make him a cup of tea. He seems to have spent his time recording responses to very specific situations.
Yes.
They go to the speed dating night at the Rovers and Glenda confiscates Paul's voice box machine when he starts using it to rip the pish out of the desperado heterosexuals, which gets taken in the robbery in the other storyline.
Yes.
Glenda, who's already upset and in shock, is devastated that the thing that might contain Paul's final words has now been lost forever, and that's as far as we get with this storyline this week.
Yeah.
Summer is gone.
Summer is gone. And the show has weird perceptions about America. Summer seems to think that people in Boston talk like Cher in the movie Clueless.
Cher? Oh, that Cher.
Yes, that Cher. Not, do you believe, Cher. The gag me with a spoon, Cher. And Billy thinks that, Todd thinks that the appropriate thing to give someone who is moving to America for a few months is a MAGA hat, which if Summer ever ventures into Southie territory in Boston would be appropriate, but not for all of Boston.
No.
And not for all of New England. And not for all of America. I'm glad the show can have fun with the utter devastation that will happen to this country if we reinstate a dictator who's a dumbass.
Anyway, keeping it light.
Keeping it light. Keeping it light. I also was very confused about Celsius earlier.
Yes, you were. I took great pleasure in explaining to you the difference between Celsius and Fahrenheit.
Which
And I was just
I know
like,
that-
oh, why didn't you say this on the podcast?
What?
Because then I would have enjoyed correcting you.
Right. Yeah. But it's like,
It's not in the teens in this time of year in Boston.
right. Because it's not for Fahrenheit in the teens in Boston. And even if it was, like, she's packing like a winter coat for spring in Boston. They talk about Billy talks about wanting to buy her a new coat, and she's very matter of fact about how bad it would be for the environment for her to buy a new coat. Whereas, flying across the Atlantic is great for the environment.
Yeah, using a ton of carbon to get you there, but sure, buy yourself a new cagoule. When she left, just to piss everybody off, because Summer, I don't think, is the most popular of characters at the moment.
No. She's
And
better
she's
than she
carrying-
was.
Absolutely. She's carrying an awful lot of baggage from summer last year when she was continually falling down, getting kidnapped,
Getting pregnant.
and then losing the baby, and then trying to pay for her rapist's boyfriend's father to go into rehab.
Right.
It was just the worst storylines that
Right.
one character could have.
Exactly.
This year, I've actually found Summer to be quite good fun.
Yeah.
And she's been great in the Paul storyline.
Right.
So I am going to miss her a little bit from the show for the next 3 months or whatever.
Right.
But what I really wanted to happen, because I appreciate that I'm very much in the minority for this, is that when the door of the taxi closed, rather than the camera lingering on Billy and Paul, the camera followed Summer, and it followed her to the airport, and it followed her onto the plane, and it followed her to Boston, and it fucking stayed there for 3 months. So what Coronation Street becomes until the middle of the summer is Summer's Boston College exploits.
Right. Only not Boston College.
No.
Because they couldn't use the words Boston College.
No, it's the University of America / Boston Common / Boston.
Right, yeah. The College of the Boston Common.
So all the storylines that are happening in the show just now happen, but we never see it.
Right. It's just...
And unless it's reported to
Right.
Summer via a call with Billy,
Yeah, she hears it on Zoom calls
We
and
never know about it.
emails and text messages.
I thought that would
Hilarious.
have been brilliant.
That would have been funny.
She would have become Ross's girlfriend in Friends that season that they went to London.
Yeah. Well,
Helen Baxendale. Is it Baxendale? Is that who it was?
I don't know.
She's a dreadful character.
I hate her.
So let's throw Summer into that role.
Right. Even though Friends was filmed in New York and Manchester's not London.
Well, we're not describing exactly the same thing, are we?
I'm
And
just being
it's not as
pedantic.
if it's happening. So,
No.
Yeah, I would have loved that to
It would
happen.
be hilarious if she brought home an American boyfriend, though, played by Timothy Chalamet.
No?
No. What would be funny is if it's a British.
No, it's the actual David Schwimmer that comes back.
What would be funny is if it's a well-known British actor playing her boyfriend with an American accent. That would be funny.
Oh, Hugh Laurie.
Why are you trying to put Summer with old men? I was thinking Barry Keoghan, who's not British, obviously. He's Irish, but still.
Let's not waste that penis on Summer.
That penis deserves more.
Oh, more? That penis is mighty enough.
No, it deserves more than Summer.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
It deserves all of the holes in the world. It is a mighty penis. Well done to him.
And this feels like it's our weekly commendation of Peter Ash, but Paul this week again
Yeah.
knocking it out the park, just
Yeah.
doing a fantastic job. And while the phrases that he was putting into his machine made no sense,
Right.
it makes no sense to have some of those phrases taken up memory when you're going to use it once.
Right.
It was such a Paul thing to do, and it was kind of endearing. And the
Yeah.
fact that it's kind of lost in
Right.
another fucking
Because
robbery
apparently they went home that night without it. Why would you go home without it? Why wouldn't you say, all right, Glenda, we're leaving. Can we have our thing back now? If it's that important to you. Why
Very
would
true.
you go home and then come back the next day and say, all right, we need our thing back now? No, you don't leave the pub without it. What is wrong with the two of you?
Yep.
Are you so high and mighty in your judgment of heterosexuals that you just forget because you're such snobby gays?
Billy was looking down his nose at them.
He was. And Paul was a little, but it was really, and it's funny because when that started and I realized how very straight it was, I was kind of looking down my nose on it. I was like, wait a second. These are all straight people? There are no gay people looking for love in Manchester? What about poor Todd? Are there no other gay men for Todd?
Nope, there was Moses and that's it.
That's it. And Billy, and that's it. I guess there's Sean. Nobody wants to date Sean, though. Not even the bully guy. What's his name? Creepy Carl. No, not Creepy Carl.
Creepy Ralph?
Where did Creepy Carl come from?
I think Mason.
What was that guy's name?
Mason.
Mason didn't date Sean.
Frank the Wank.
Frank the Wink. That's right. Kind of like Creepy Carl, but different. Oh, dear.
I think there's a big difference between Creepy Carl and Frank the Wank. And you just need to date one of them to find out. All right. I think Billy's maybe a bit too focused on himself in this storyline.
He's been too focused on himself for this whole storyline.
Yeah,
from the very beginning.
Is he meant to be like that? It feels awful saying it.
Why does it feel awful to be saying it when he's been like this for months?
I don't know. It feels uncomfortable saying it because he's looking after his boyfriend, his husband.
His husband, yes. But he's been like this from the very beginning. From the second Paul got MND, Billy made it all about himself.
It's making a bit.
It was ridiculous, the whole, oh, well, I guess we can't eat now. Billy and Summer being like, well, we can't eat. We can't eat this food. We're all going to eat blended food until Paul dies.
Unable to speak to each other now.
Right, yeah.
Well, I guess that's speech gone.
It's like, what? And, I mean, they're just going to walk down to the homeless shelter and say, is anybody here? Would anybody like this food that we made at home without gloves on and have carried here, without gloves on, without, any sort of, no hair nets?
Summer sneezed in it a couple of times, but...
You'll be fine. I thought Bernie was very sweet. Both with the nurse at the appointment and then later on blending the apple pie filling with everything else, which is what Billy should have done in the first place. Paul's like, well, just blend it for me. And then I guess Billy just dumps everything in.
That's pretty much what I gathered, yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have put the stuff in, he says.
Yeah. What's wrong with you, Billy? You definitely didn't need to put any mashed potatoes in there. Or were they roasted potatoes?
I think they were roasted. But
yeah.
Once you blend it, it all becomes mashed, right?
Right, yeah. I just remembered when my brother broke his jaw as a kid. And, and his jaw was wired shut and he had to eat everything blended through a straw. It's not fun. It's not pretty. It's not pretty to see meat blended. That's not pretty. So I can commiserate. Maybe they can just, maybe he can become vegan and just eat lots of
soups.
Yeah.
Lots of soup.
Lots of smoothies made with, spinach and raspberries and banana. Banana's great. Although apparently Paul doesn't like banana. Or the banana was hard to swallow. I don't know. Anyway. Maybe
Let's
that was
move
a
on
euphemism.
To our next storyline. Quiz Night Cheaters. On Monday, Cassie bursts into the house after receiving an urgent message from Evelyn. But Evelyn's intent is a lovely lunch and then a drink at the Rovers later. In the Rovers, Evelyn being nice is freaking Cassie out. And if Evelyn is feeling guilty about how things worked out, she needn't be. Evelyn isn't responsible for Cassie's dad's death either, says Cassie. Not everything is rosy though, as when she goes to the bar, Cassie has a swig from Evelyn's brandy and then pretends that she's on the orange juice.
Uh-huh.
But that's all that happens in that this week.
Right. And then they play trivia.
And then they cheat at the trivia.
Well, Cassie looks something up just to prove something to her mum.
Which you can't do.
Right.
And
I know
you
that.
know this.
I know that.
And Cassie should know this.
But apparently she doesn't.
And Adam spots it in a flash.
Yes.
Get those fucking cheaters dealt with.
He's like, because he's the legal eagle.
Right.
which is such a dumb name for a team. Are you proud of us that Stelly and I got second place last night? Just the two of us?
I don't know if proud's the right word. Surprised, maybe.
How dare you?
We've been doing awful at trivia for weeks now.
I know. And then Stelly and I go, just the two of us, and we get second place.
All thanks to Stella, I hear.
I got Geely. Geely, it was all me.
Geely?
Yeah, the Jennifer Lopez movie. It was what's the name of the movie? What is the name of the Jennifer Lopez movie that got Golden Raspberries for worst actor, worst actress, and worst couple?
I think I would have known that. Geely.
Geely.
G-I-G-L-I, isn't it?
G-I-L-I.
No,
Geely.
that's not right. Yeah, I was right. G-I-G-L-I.
It's still just Healy, though. It's how it's pronounced. It's weird.
You can attempt to dig yourself out of this hole as much as you like.
No, but yes, Stelly knew where Sudan was, and that was the do or die dare. So.
Very good.
Yes.
Moving on. Our next storyline is Private Joseph. On Wednesday, Joseph is in his wedding gear for the third time as he heads to Oakhill for the entrance exam. Afterwards, Joseph is rather confident that he smashed it, and secretly he tells Gemma how much he likes school and he loves exams, and it would be amazing to get into Oakhill. And how lovely is it to see Joseph excited about something?
Yeah, it's very nice.
Just don't tell Sally, remember?
No, don't tell Sally.
Later, Gemma and Chesney decide that Joseph getting a decent education isn't the worst thing in the world after all, and they remark that it's good for them to be on the same team as each other for a change. On Friday, two of the quads are caught fucking around with a living room fridge.
And one is Alad.
When Oakhill call to let Chesney know that Joseph has passed the entry exam, but they now want to interview the two of them and him before granting him a place.
Yeah, they just want to interview him.
Yes.
They say they want to interview him. They do not want to interview the parents.
Gemma is frantic because the place is a coup, so the two of them pull an all-nighter to deep clean the living room. Next morning they're still at it, except now they're washing the windows outside. A passing Izzy manages to hide her anger at Granny Linda and her deep fucking pockets.
For one of her grandchildren.
Despite all the tidying though, there's still a fridge in the living room. Ches and Gemma...
Which it's nice that the show has remembered. It was hilarious when I saw the two... And that poor kid is like staring into the refrigerator as if he's that one guy from the Blair Witch Project in the corner.
Yes.
He's just standing there like this, looking into the abyss, I guess. Maybe he sees Gozer. Who knows? It's weird. Or Zool. Whichever one. Who gives a fuck?
Solitary fuck.
But, you know, it was like, oh, wow, the show remembered that there's a fridge here. I wonder why the show has remembered that there's a fridge here. I guess we'll find out why the show has remembered there's a fridge here.
Ches and Gemma, to their credit, look amazing.
They look too good.
As the woman, Dawn, from Oakhill arrives. Gemma, by default, apologises for the mess when there isn't any.
Right, and is talking like...
She's put on her best Bridgerton accent impression. But meanwhile, the fridge just continues to shit itself.
It continues to shit ice cubes.
Gemma and Chesney can't help but answer all the questions themselves, not giving Joseph a chance to really talk at all.
Right.
And when the interview's over, Gemma is sure that they've blown it, but instead, Joseph is in. He's going to Oakhill.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
And in celebration, the fridge shits some more ice cubes out.
That was so funny.
It was so funny. That...
I would never have believed that a living room fridge dropping ice at inappropriate moments would be as consistently funny as it was. But every time it happened, I was pissing myself laughing. And I was in a bad mood with the show at this point.
Right, yeah.
I was in such a bad mood with the show. So for it to make me laugh as much as it did, I thought was pretty impressive.
Between that and Gemma's posh accent, which was also hilarious.
It's really
was
just from the
so
start.
Good.
When she apologises for the mess and then realises that there isn't a mess.
She's talking like Mrs. Doubtfire. It's hilarious.
Yep.
Only not because Mrs. Doubtfire is Irish? No, she's English.
No,
Mrs. Doubtfire.
she's Scottish.
Is that supposed to be Scottish?
Yes.
I'm confused, just as Pierce Brosnan was about her muddled accent.
No, I thought this was hilarious.
It was so funny.
It goes to show when Chesney gets something a little less depressing to work on,
Right.
he can be a decent character.
It was also hilarious watching him scramble for the ice cubes wearing that suit.
Yes.
That was also very funny.
When
I did enjoy that.
just leave it. Right.
Right.
You know this is going to do this.
Just leave it.
Leave it. If you want to do something, get a basin and put the basin at the
Right.
the foot of the
It's ice.
and
It's water.
And-
It's not going to stain anything.
and it's a fridge in the living room.
Well, it's kind of in the dining room part, isn't it?
No.
To give them any. And it was weird seeing, like, because they showed an angle that we haven't really seen from this flat before. Like, looking into, like, there's like a false wall or something from the kitchen. So that there's like a wall, but it doesn't go all the way. And everything. It's like, oh, that's how that works. It was interesting to see a different angle of that room.
Right. I just liked that the drama that was in this was all kind of created by themselves, because Joseph has an exam, he nails it. Joseph has an interview, he passes that as well somehow.
Right, yes.
Despite their kind of best efforts.
Right.
They realise that this isn't the worst thing to happen to him.
Right.
For something nice to happen to Joseph isn't the worst thing to happen to Joseph.
Right. I'm just terrified now that the worst thing that happens to Joseph will happen at Oakhill. That he'll get bullied or something. Or a teacher will beat him up or something. Or worse. I'm just terrified that something bad is going to happen.
Let's have something nice happening to Joseph for,
Yes. And
for at
this-
least a little while.
And this family. Can we stop with the poverty porn for the Winter Browns?
But you know what I was put in mind of as I saw them looking all prim and proper?
Uh-huh.
The photoshopped version of themselves that Freshco's wanted to use.
Yeah.
That they absolutely found repellent and refused
Right.
to have their likeness.
Because it was unrealistic.
despite the fact they were going to get paid tons and tons of money for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here they were looking like that couple.
Yeah.
They were scrubbing up pretty neatly.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're not gonna look-
what could have been.
They're not going to look like that tomorrow, though. Let's be honest.
No.
They can do this for 24 hours, and that's about it.
Yeah, this was a rare highlight on Friday. I really enjoyed that.
Me too.
Next storyline is Steve's crunchy old sock. On Wednesday, Steve is in Nina's Road lamenting about how no one is swiping left for him. Is it swiping left or swiping right that's the good thing?
Swipe right is good. Swipe left is sinister.
Okay, everyone's swiping left on them. Debbie takes an interest in passing and tells him about a 2-for-1 cocktail night at the Rape Hotel that might be a meat market, and it's not called the Rape Hotel for nothing. He goes and speaks to Ken about his woes, who thinks the cocktail night at the Rape Hotel might just be the ticket, so Steve agrees to go along with his 85-year-old father-in-law. Once there, the cocktail night is dead, but Ken still gets a click from a woman at the bar who likes the look of what she sees, and she buys them both a drink. This is Elspeth, and she and Ken get on famously, but Ken, he takes his wingman duties seriously, so when Steve leaves, Ken goes too, but he arranges to meet Elspeth for drinks and sex later.
Right. Yes, they exchange phone numbers.
Elspeth is played by Helen Lederer,
Yes.
who I remember from my childhood in Naked Video, a BBC Scotland sketch comedy show on BBC Two.
Were people really naked?
No,
Okay, good.
but I think this is what introduced Rabsy Nesbitt to the world, was Naked Video, which you won't know anything about.
No.
On Friday, and number one, Steve is regretting having Ken as his wingman, so Amy tells him about the speed dating night that's at the Rovers tonight. Ken is off out with Elspeth later and expects to get his haul. Steve is listening to Staying Alive on his headphones as he heads to the Rovers, which is actually looking pretty well attended.
That was hilarious as well.
Bang, bang, bang,
Steve-
bang, bang,
Steve-
bang, 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 bang.
Was that supposed to be Staying Alive?
It was the bass line to Staying Alive.
Sure. But it was hilarious watching Steve walk down the street listening to this in his earbuds, you know, which are attached to a cord, which is so cute. And kind of doing the strut and everything, and then looking at himself in the mirror of a car. I just expected somebody to open that door and knock him off or something.
do the windscreen scoosher thing.
Right, yeah. Or roll down the window and say, "What are you doing, man?" And it'd be Tracy.
Cassie, Izzy, Alia are all there, but Steve's first day is with Tracy.
That was funny, too.
Of course, they end up sitting at the same table and they immediately start arguing. Then later, Steve bores the tits off Christina by talking about his taxi firm too much, but then he seems to hit it off a bit better with Cassie. Steve suggests that they do it again, but without the dozens of other strangers, but Cassie just felt sorry for him and doesn't think they have any chemistry. It's fucking brutal. Next day, he complains about this to Amy. Not only was he knocked back by Cassie, but he didn't get any potentials from his scorecard either. To cheer him up, Amy offers to eat dinner with him at the bistro later. Steve goes to pick her up from the florist. Everything is high alert after the robbery and the other storyline. So as she's getting ready, he closes the door and locks it. And as he's waiting, Tommy O appears to the locked door and he shouts through it, begging to speak with Amy, explains that he's leaving, and then he slips a note for her through the letterbox that Steve intercepts.
And he appears to be wearing Imran's coat.
No, was he? That's as far as we get with that this week.
Yeah. It was funny, you know, Steve complaining about the speed dating and saying, you know, the problem is I've lived here all my life and I've known these women all my lives. But then he mentions Glenda, and it's like, you haven't known Glenda your whole life, dude. She just moved here this year. Wasn't it this year?
No.
2 years ago? Still, he hasn't known her his whole life. Date Glenda. She's delightful. She's wonderful. She's the best.
I can't imagine that she'd be remotely interested in Steve.
Well, no, but still. Don't
Because
add her
that's
to
the
the
problem.
list.
No one's interested in Steve.
No, it's true. No one's interested in Steve.
He was on the cusp of turning into this guy just before he married Tracy. Mm-hmm. And now I think he's just...
How will they populate the street if Steve is not having sex?
Steve needs to become a father at least one more time.
One more time.
Doesn't he?
Just once. One more time. To replace Oliver. Oh,
Oh, too soon.
poor Oliver.
It was brutal when Cassie let
Knocks him back.
She could go on one date with him,
Seriously.
couldn't she?
Yeah.
She's not got anything better to do.
Right. Yeah.
She'll
Except
get a free dinner out of it.
pine over Kev.
Oh, God. I know, right?
Don't do that. Date Steve. Why not? He's there. He's available. There's slim pickings.
Now, I guess we're going to talk about this in the final storyline, but the speed dating night was enormous fun. Don't you think?
Parts of it was fun, and parts of it felt like these poor women subjecting themselves to just the worst sort of men ever to go to a speed dating thing.
I can't imagine anything worse
Poor Izzy.
than a speed dating night.
Poor Izzy. Every single man asking her about her chair.
Yep.
Fuck off, all of you.
And she has a belter of an answer every single time.
Right.
And it gets her absolutely nowhere.
But it shouldn't have to. She shouldn't have to do that. They could ask her about her favorite movies or what she likes to do on the weekends. Why would you start with the chair? Terrible. And then that guy with the elephant.
Which was funny the first time.
Yeah. And then it stopped being funny.
Sure. But the saddest thing about the whole lot was the camera's focusing on Steve and his I don't know, absence of luck with any of the people that he talked to. And there's Izzy, who can't even leave because Steve's standing in her way.
Right.
So she has to wait for this loser to fuck off before she can fuck off.
Right.
And she hasn't pulled either.
No.
But it's kind of sadder because, well, Izzy's kind of a nice person.
Yes. And she's funny and she's good to hang out with. And she's delightful. And she shouldn't be getting questions about the stupid fucking chair.
Is that all Izzy's become?
That's all these men see.
The one in the wheelchair?
Yeah. That's all these men see.
The show's kind of guilty of using her that way as well, though.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, which is why it's hilarious that the show is now saying this is bad behavior by these men to be asking about the chair.
I don't know that it was
What?
saying that clearly enough. I don't think, compared with,
You could
isn't this
see-
amusing?
I don't know. You could see in her eyes that this was not amusing. You know, and that her responses are not amusing. They're a defense mechanism. I think the show, I think you're right that it could have been clearer, but I didn't find it funny at all. And I don't think it was meant to be funny. I think it was meant to shine a light on what people with disabilities have to go through for
Yes.
things like this.
100%.
Yes.
Well,
Giving the show credit where it's due.
is Steve going to get his hole this year?
I mean, the fact that he's gotten his hole all the other years is kind of shocking.
Well, I'm going to make a bet with you. $1 American says that Steve does not get his hole this year. Are you going to take that bet?
I am, because I read spoilers.
So you think he's going to get his hole? I don't.
This year,
This year.
It's-
Before this calendar year is out.
it's only the end of the third month of the year. There's plenty of time.
And it's not a year from now. It's this year.
Yeah.
The calendar
No,
year
I get it.
2024.
I get it. I
Okay.
totally get it. What do you think? What do you think Tomio's letter says? Do you think Tomio wants Tracy to come with him?
I think that's what that says, yes. And I
Yeah.
think Steve is not going to tell Tracy. And
I think Tracy
I think
already
Tracy's
knows.
going to find out.
I think Tracy already knows because he's left all these voicemails, and he kind of hints at it, like,
Well, and Steve's hiding off the letter is just going to be the final straw.
yeah. Goodbye to Tracy and Steve, or Tracy and Steve. Yes, Tracy and Steve.
And one way, goodbye to them.
Yes.
All right, our final storyline tonight is the Telltale Pub. On Monday, Daisy is jealous when she sees Jenny and Bethany be all nicey with each other.
About a vintage coat.
Snarkily, Jenny wonders if this is because of the article or because she's with Daniel. And if this was an American sitcom, the audience would be making some "ooh, no she didn't" noises. Later, Daisy is shown off because her karaoke night was so successful, and after hearing Glenda talk about dating sites, Jenny has the bright idea of having a speed dating night at the Rovers. Daisy thinks it's very 1990s. "Suck my balls," says Jenny, and she grabs the diary. This puts Daisy's tits out of joint. She thought she was in charge of events.
And yet we see that she's not very good at being in charge of events.
No, she's not. On Wednesday, Daisy is shocked to see Jenny put up signs for her speed dating night. It's fucking karaoke night on Friday. But Daisy has no posters, so is forced once again to suck on Jenny's balls.
And didn't put it in the diary.
Daisy goes to complain to Ryan, who's employing too much common sense for her liking, but then she gets a text from her mum announcing that she's coming to visit for 2 weeks. Jenny comes in to hear this, and finally she and Daisy can agree. Christina needs to get to fuck, but it seems too late. Ryan thanks the old Christina for stumping up the cash to buy the pub. "Oh, yes, you know about that," says everyone. Daisy's mom shows up with 2 suitcases for 2 weeks that she's going to be staying for. 1 more suitcase than Summer had, who's fucking off to Boston for 3 months. Turns out her
Christina
landlord...
didn't have to take an airplane. Let's be fair.
Turns out her landlord has booted her out, and she longs for the barge in Amsterdam. Daisy thinks it's a great idea. Go to the Netherlands then. And she practically has her mum on a plane that evening. But rather than go to Amsterdam, Christina goes to the pub because her passport is out of date. Jenny refuses to put Christina up while Daisy ushers her out, But then Ryan appears and says, after lending you all that money, the least that she can do is stay for a drink. Jenny and Daisy wish Ryan dead, while Christina wonders just what the fuck is going on. Daisy drags Christina away, but the damage has been done. And Christina now needs to know about the money she supposedly gave to Daisy. So Daisy has to explain to keep her mum's mouth shut.
To keep her mum.
Yes. It's almost as though it was a bad idea for Daisy to suggest that her mum helped out in the first place, just to give Carla an excuse. Remember, this is what this is all about.
Yes.
Carla wanted to know where they got the money from.
Right.
Rather than saying, the bank.
Right.
Daisy decides to say, my mum.
Yeah. Dumb.
Inexplicable. Jenny's shocked to learn that the secret is out, but Daisy points out that Christina loves keeping secrets while it's going to make Daisy's life a misery. On Friday, in the morning, Daisy and Jenny are still fretting about Christina spilling her guts and general speed dating / karaoke bitchiness. Rita waltzes in and asks Jenny along to an Italian restaurant and an overnight stay at a hotel tonight. She was going to be going with Ken, but he's ditched her because he's getting his hold of some Elspeth woman. Carla comes in later and quizzes Daisy about her plans to go away for the weekend. Daisy and Ryan are apparently going for a break to the lakes because it's been a year since the acid attack. That's been a year.
It's been a year. And nobody remembers but Daisy and Ryan.
Yes.
Everybody's like, why are you going out? Oh.
Yes. A dolled up Jenny breaks the news that she's off and has dipped her fingers into Stephen's money to pay for it. Daisy is unimpressed.
No. She used the money to pay for the dress. This is a Rita. Rita won a contest for an Italian dinner. And so Jenny is fucking off from her event that she organized at the Rovers to eat Italian food at that place by the bus station.
Daisy is unimpressed and refuses to help out because of her break to the lakes, because of the acid attack thing. Who's going to do the speed dating then? And this leaves Glenda in charge on her own, and it is doing a power of business. The place is absolutely packed. Christina shows up later and is about to leave when a weird guy from... I thought it was the same guy from Nina's Rose last week, but it's not. She gets chatting to him. I think his name's Connor.
His name is Connor.
An Irish charmer with a toy elephant and one joke that's going to use 100 times. He shows up as well. Adam shows up to ask Alia a work question.
Yeah. Fucking asshole.
I like that.
You did. It was such a dick move. Alia's like, fuck off.
But it gave us a little look at Adam and Alia together. And you know what? I didn't hate it.
Alia deserves better.
Now, Sarah's going out of the show on account of being pregnant. So I don't think anything's going to happen there in the foreseeable. So if she wasn't going out of the show, I might put another one of those American dollars on the two of them hooking up. The night goes brilliantly until closing time when Glenda's closing up. And, the door is kicked open and the bar is robbed by a couple of twats, leaving Glenda a quivering wreck on the floor.
Yeah, they threaten her with baseball bats. So it's an armed robbery.
Yep. Somehow she manages to call the police. Next day, and Jenny comes home to a police car outside, and Glenda has to explain. She puts on a brave face, but admits that she thought she was going to get a battering. Later, she has flashbacks of the horrible incident, but she remembers a tattoo on the wrist of a guy called Connor, who was at the speed dating night.
Yes, it's a sparrow on his wrist.
Yeah. She tells Jenny about it and reckons it's all her fault because during the speed dating, she told him that she was there on her own. So once Daisy's home and she and Jenny are down in the dumps, Carla appears to give them a boost, saying that thanks to them, the Rover still exists in the first place and they have a lot to be proud of, and they definitely haven't used ill-gotten funds to achieve it. As she goes to make Jenny a cup of tea, Glenda once more gets flashbacks from her terrifying ordeal, and that is how we end this week's episodes.
Sean works in the pub still, yes? And Gemma still works in the pub, yes? Glenda didn't have to be on her own completely. And how was she running that dating thing while also pulling pints?
For hundreds of people.
And cooking hot pots. Yeah, there should have been at least one other person working that night.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
And there are Sean is desperate for money. Gemma is always desperate for money. Why does the show seem to think it's only the three of them working in the pub now?
Now, the Rovers' staffing schedule notwithstanding, after just complaining about gangster storylines and robbery storylines, it is not just a slap in the face that the show gives us one this week. It gives us two.
Yeah.
2 armed robberies in 1 week.
Too many.
Surely too many.
Yes.
Doesn't this feel the same when you're writing it? That haven't I already done this week?
No, but let's be honest. The show up until this point has not psychologically damaged Glenda yet. There's a woman on the street who hasn't been psychologically damaged yet, so they had to rectify that situation. So now all women on the street have been attacked by men. Everybody, they've evened it out now once again. So it's fine as long as all women have been attacked on the street. And the fucking Rovers, man, they need to shut that shit down because there is some bad voodoo there. There's a curse on. I know it's in Manchester, but there are Native Americans buried under there somehow.
Yeah, they've been dug up from here, shipped over in a ghost boat, and then reburied.
It's Pocahontas.
And then dug back up
Pocahontas
again.
is buried under there because she did die in England. So, because Jenny has been attacked in that pub. Daisy has been attacked in that pub. Glenda has been attacked in that pub. People have died in that pub. People have been shot and then stumbled out and then died on the sidewalk outside of that pub. That pub needs to go.
I am all for Glenda getting a storyline.
Yeah,
because Glenda has been just in the background, in the periphery of other storylines for pretty much all her time.
Yeah,
on
pretty
the show.
much.
I don't think she's had a single storyline on her own. There was one roundabout her moving into Georgie's house, but that even didn't become a thing.
There's the superstars or whatever it is.
Oh, little super shots.
Yeah, little
big shots.
Yes, little big shots. But even that, it kind of seems like that is just used for other people's storylines more than being a storyline of Glenda's on her own.
Yeah.
So for them to finally give her a storyline and it's being her assaulted by thugs stealing.
And to have her cower.
Yeah.
And think that she was going to get seriously hurt.
Yeah. Because they had
if
baseball
there's a
bats.
character that you really don't want that wished upon, Glenda's going to be pretty high on your list because Glenda's just so lovely.
Right. And
so I want good things for her and I want good storylines for her.
And also, once again, something like this happens. And what do all the people say? Oh, you know, Glenda, she's so strong. She's so tough.
Oh, she's
this
such a strong
doesn't bother
woman.
her. She's such a strong woman. Such a strong woman.
Such
of course,
a very, very strong woman.
Of course this isn't going to bother her too much. She'll be fine. Yes.
And
yes.
so therefore she can't show that she's hurting inside
Right,
because
yeah.
people see her as being such a very strong
Right,
woman.
yeah. Like Nina. And like Amy. And like Leanne.
Not like Summer though.
No. And not like Natasha.
No, because she's dead.
Right. Or Rana. Because she's also dead. She's not only dead, she's flat.
I'm not sure what point we're making here anymore.
I don't know. The show likes to accost women and then make them to be strong. Only they're all psychologically damaged.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we please get this lesbian woman in the show now? We just wipe all this out.
See, this is why we should have followed Summer to Boston. Because then we'd come back in 3 months and someone would say, well, remember that time the Rovers got broken into and Glenda nearly got killed? And we go, what? And she go, yeah, it was a few months ago. I'm fine now, but it was kind of horrible at the time.
Yeah, but you know what would happen? Of course. Summer would just get assaulted in Boston.
No, because she's Ross's girlfriend.
That is assault. Do you know how old David Schwimmer is?
It's fine. Everyone's consensual to this.
I'm not consensual to this. He could be her grandpa.
I swear to God, we'd have been better off just following Summer. And I accept that the speed dating night wasn't an unadulterated highlight, but for a long period of time for me, it was a bit of fun. And it was great seeing the Rovers so busy. It was great seeing it so full of people that we don't know who all of these people are.
Right.
Because it's a pub.
Right.
And it was great that we would dip into a storyline just for a couple of lines, and then we'd move on to something else, and you're never exactly sure which storyline you're in at the moment.
That's true.
I love that. And I don't think we've had it quite as complicated as that, with so many pieces in it, for quite some time. And it really was great. But the second that the guys burst in and start stealing the drink and start smashing the place up, I was like, show, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, but you knew it was going to happen, right? Because that Connor guy...
I honestly didn't.
From the very beginning, you look at him and you're like, yeah, he's going to do something. Because he was just suspicious as fuck from the second he walked in.
Well, he's got very short hair and a beard, and he's kind of tall and skinny. So yes, he looks...
And his name is Connor.
He looks suspicious, I guess, but
yeah,
I honestly didn't see it coming. So when it did, it gave me a surprise, and it just filled me with disappointment.
And also, it's depressing as hell that nobody made a love connection. Nobody got anything from that. Except for time wasted with the elephant man, whose elephant was far too tiny. And it was hilarious when Glenda pointed that out to that dude, because that's exactly what I was thinking. You know, first of all, this line is terrible. I doubt it's ever worked for you. You brought props. Who brings props? And second of all, when you say the elephant in the room thinks that you're very beautiful, and an elephant is a creature with a trunk, and it's a very small trunk because it's a very small elephant, all those women are thinking is that you have something very small in your trousers. And Glenda points this out to the dude, and it was hilarious. Nobody makes a love connection. Not a single person.
Nobody makes a connection.
Christina would like Connor's number, which I find hilarious.
Of course she would, because she's a wrong 'un as well.
But even Glenda was kind of flirting with him.
Oh,
like, come on, Glenda. You have better taste than this.
Couple of really, really strong weeks, and then you give me 2 robberies. You bring Christina back.
Yeah, but at least we have the refrigerator in the living room.
The refrigerator in the living room. Yeah, well, that was the week that was Coronation Street.
Yes.
Helen, tell me, what was your moment of the week?
The refrigerator in the living room.
It has to be. An inanimate object is winning moment of the week.
Just shitting out them ice cubes.
Moment of the week.
Moment of the week.
Your boring moment of the week?
Ken inviting himself to the hotel and, like, Ken primping in that mirror before going to the hotel with Steve.
Oh, really? That was kind of funny, wasn't it?
No.
Okay. I can't think of anything
Daniel's
else.
not in it this week, so... And Chesney was delightful, so it's got to go to Ken.
For a moment of
Ken crimping, did you say?
Primping.
Primping.
Yes. Looking in the mirror and... licking his fingers and smoothing down his eyebrows.
Honest to God.
And giving himself a look.
Since I turned 49, I think the hair that grows the quickest on any part of my body is my eyebrows.
That was true before you were 49.
They went years without growing at all.
That's what you think.
Ugh. Fucking grown old sucks. Your score out of 10 this week?
4.
Come on. Wasn't it a 4?
It was a 4.
I don't think it was a 4. I certainly don't think it was a 7.
No.
I'd maybe give it a 5.5.
I'll give it a 4.5 because of the refrigerator. The refrigerator gets half a point all by
I'm
itself.
giving it a 5.5 because of the refrigerator and because of the good parts about the speed dating. And Summer's Farewell has given me a bit of joy because it's made me think about things that the show didn't do.
I can't believe we gave Moment of the Week to the refrigerator and not Summer leaving.
Oh, that was never going to be Moment of the Week, I don't think.
know, but
I'd have fought you for that. I'd have fought you with a sledgehammer.
And I would've-
5.5 for me, but a definite downturn
Yeah.
in the last couple of weeks.
Was not as good.
All right, this episode was brought to you with thanks to our friends of the podcast, Daisy, French Helen, Pickles, DT, Trisha, Wendy, Noel, Canadian Helen, Christine, Shandy.
Muchas gracias.
And if you've ever shot ice onto Chesney's living room carpet, write in to tell us about it. We're the talk of the street at gmail.com, and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. You can shout me and Helen a coffee or become a friend of the podcast by heading to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/the talk of the street. Check out the clicky section of vogle.co.uk for links to our merch store and YouTube channel. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. And be sure to check out our pop culture sister podcast, The List of Lists. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode. And we will be back next week with our big 300th episode
Woohoo!
of The Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Cheerio.